Research from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child describes this as building the brain's air traffic control system. So, what that means is that essentially executive functioning skills are being built at this time to help children focus, follow direction, and handle multiple tasks. They are literally learning how to be in the world. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unpacking the Occupation, where I'll help you navigate your child's daily challenges by uncovering the why behind their need at home. I am your host, Trina Esperante, a second-year grad student getting my doctorate degree in occupational therapy. And I am super thrilled to be partnering with Blue Ridge Production on this podcast series, which is a core part of my Capstone project. On this very first episode, I would like to welcome you all to this brand new series, share a bit about myself and my journey to OT, explain what this podcast is going to be all about, and basically outline what you can expect in our future conversations. Before we dive in, though, I do want to share a quick but really important disclaimer. All information, advice, and strategies that will be provided on this podcast are based on current literature, my clinical observations from fieldwork rotations, and just general knowledge I've gained during my OT education. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is solely related to my Capstone research project. This series will serve as a repository for caregivers who can use the series as a supplemental resource. It's not a substitute for individualized medical or therapeutic advice. So, my journey to OT began about 10 years ago when I was a gymnastics instructor for toddlers, and I taught the foundational skills of gymnastics. It was super fun. It was super chaotic. Because of that job, I knew I wanted to work with kids. I just never knew the type of career that would lead me to pursue that. And it wasn't until an old friend came up to me and said, "Hey, Trina, you should look into OT." And I was like, okay, sure. I had no idea what that profession was. It was my first time hearing it. But I did a little bit of research and I learned that occupational therapy is really cool. And we help individuals regain their ability and independence to perform daily activities such as bathing, dressing, toileting, and feeding. However, as a pediatric OT, we focus heavily on the occupation of play and the child's development through play that enables them to achieve those milestones, to help them gain those social skills, emotional skills, develop those problem solving skills, or even help promote and achieve different types of play based on their abilities. And after doing all of this research and shadowing a few OT settings, I knew I really wanted to apply for OT school and pave my path to become a pediatric OT. However, like any path to success, it was not linear. Back in 2021, I got into a master's program for OT and I was set. I was ready. I was so excited. I was ready to go. I was telling my friends and my family, and I just, was ready to begin this dream of mine. However, a bigger dream appeared and I became pregnant with my one and only son, who is now 4 years old. And it was a sign that I needed to take a pause, do what was best for my family at the time, because I knew that I had a bigger role to fill. And that's when I made the decision to pause, defer from the initial program, and just grow with the company that I previously worked for. However, I always knew that I wanted to go back to school. That company wasn't my end game. Being an OT was my end game. So about 2 years ago, I decided it was time to pick up where I left off, and now here I am, a second-year OT doctoral student, graduating in a few months, and getting ready to become that OT that I've always wanted to be. My Capstone project and this podcast series are designed to support caregivers of young children, specifically those between the ages 0 and 6. This is such a crucial developmental period because it's when the foundation for lifelong skills are built. In these early years, a child's brain is developing at an incredible rate. Research from the Harvard Center on Developing Child describes this as building the brain's air traffic control system. It's the essential executive function skills that help children focus, follow directions, and handle multiple tasks. They are literally learning how to be in the world, yet they often encounter hurdles with everyday occupations, and those can include essential activities like bathing, eating, playing, or even transitioning from one task to another. I really wanted to focus on this age group because, as a first time mom myself to a 4-year-old, I deeply understand these moments. I know what it's like when the expert part of my brain knows the theory, but the mom part of my brain is just trying to get through those next 10 minutes. And as caregivers, we often find ourselves in that space of wondering why a simple task feels like a mountain, or wondering how can we best support our child's occupational performance without it becoming a huge battle. This podcast is about moving from that place of wondering into a place of understanding. And together, we're going to look at the why behind these challenges, whether it's sensory, developmental, or emotional, and find evidence based, practical ways to help your child succeed in their daily routines and help you feel more confident in your role as a parent. So, what can you guys expect in our upcoming episodes? We are going to be diving straight into the heart of the home, where each week we will be joined by a caregiver just like you to talk through a specific challenge they're facing. Whether it's a struggle with the morning routine, difficulty with transitions, or those tricky mealtime moments. Together, we're going to unpack these situations using the professional tools of occupational therapy, and we'll look into things a little differently through OT models and frameworks to really understand the why behind the behavior. However, we won't stop at theory. My ultimate goal is to leave you with a toolbox of tailored evidence based strategies that you can actually use at home. I want you to feel empowered with the knowledge to meet your child's needs and make those daily activities more meaningful and help your little one or your whole family thrive in everyday life at home. Before we wrap up each episode on this podcast series, I would like to leave you guys with a quick practical tool that you guys can use at home. And we'll call this our OT tip of the day. And today's tip is all about the pause. This strategy is backed by our professional occupational therapy practice guidelines, which emphasizes that co regulation piece, or sharing your calm with your child, is the foundation for their emotional growth. When your child is having a hard time, maybe they're frustrated with a toy or resisting a transition, just take 5 seconds to breathe and check in with your own body before you react. Remember, our children often borrow our calm to help regulate themselves. And by taking that pause, you're practicing that co regulation, which is the first step in helping them find their own balance. It's a small shift, but it can change the entire energy of a moment. Again, thank you so much for joining me on this introductory episode of Unpacking the Occupation. I am truly excited to embark on this journey with you and offer practical insights and supports. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you listen from. This helps other caregivers find us, and you can also find more information about my Capstone project, podcast series, and resources on my Instagram, OT with Trina. Join me next time as we begin to unpack our first occupational challenge. Until then, keep exploring, keep adapting, and keep supporting those meaningful occupations. And remember, you are doing an amazing job for your child. Don't forget to love yourself through the process. Mahalo!